So let's talk about something D&D is really bad at showing you: scale. Because if you've ever looked at a battle map and you've dropped down a mini, and then you thought to yourself, oh, that's it? You're not necessarily wrong. D&D monsters are supposed to be these very terrifying, world-shaking things at times, but once you put them down on the table, they're just a slightly larger circle with more hit points. And that disconnect matters, at least it does to me. Because when you actually stop and think about how big these monsters really are, like real world big, how big are they if they were in front of you? So today, I want to zoom out and talk about the true scale of D&D monsters and why that grid is lying to you. So let's start small. Goblins. We treat goblins like pests, like rats with knives. These are low-level nuisances that you mow down in groups of 4 or 5 because they're just easy and fun to kill. But a goblin isn't necessarily tiny. It's not knee-high, right? Goblins are around 3.5 to 4 feet tall. That's the size of a small child. So now imagine a violent, armed, fast-moving child with sharp teeth, glowing eyes, and zero hesitation about stabbing you in the thigh. That is immediately unsettling. That's unsettling for me. That's horror level right there. Now imagine 6 of them in the dark, and they're all watching you. They're all smart enough to set traps, to plan ambushes, and retreat if things go badly. And on top of that, they can move in and out of tunnels that you don't know are there. They're able to move into places that you cannot access. And so that, I think, is the first lie that D&D tells you. Small doesn't mean safe. So now let's take wolves, for example, because we've all seen wolves in movies and our brains immediately shrink them. We kind of, unless you've seen a wolf in person, you just think about like a dog, like maybe a big dog. A wolf is closer to a small horse in mass. It is taller than most dogs, it's definitely heavier, it's stronger. Wolves are built to pull prey to the ground and keep them there long enough for the rest of the wolves to show up and take the animal out, their prey out. Its head is right where your organs are, and their bite force is strong enough to crush your bones. And they don't bark, they don't warn you that they're coming, they just commit and they move in for the kill. Now that's one wolf. Now imagine multiple wolves moving in silence, circling, waiting for you to make a mistake before they suddenly lunge at you. That's already beyond what most people are comfortable imagining. If you were out on a camping trip and you saw a wolf, chances are you would kind of freak out. So now let's move into a category where things are no longer animals and are just kind of monstrous, for lack of a better word. A lot of D&D monsters we treat as early game fodder are already nightmare-sized. Like a giant spider, again, something else that is not a dog. A giant spider in D&D is the size of a horse. Not a pony, a horse. A horse that has 8 legs, it has a big body, and it has enough size that each individual leg is thicker than your arm. That means it's taller than you, that means it's heavier than you, and it's faster than you. We've all seen spiders move. Now imagine walking into a cave and seeing a spider whose eyes are at your eye level or taller, up to 10 feet in the air. That's like the size of your ceiling. Spiders are already really creepy at normal size. For most people, I actually think they're kind of cute. I mean, look at this. Now scale that up until you can hear them move. When you can hear them making all the little noises that they do. And then their webbing is thick enough to catch your entire body. So now let's move to another classic creature from D&D lore, the owlbear. We joke about owlbears constantly. They're basically memes at this point. But an owlbear is roughly the size of a grizzly bear. It is 8 feet tall when it rears up at least. It's over 1,000 pounds of muscle, bone, and feathers, and it isn't just a big bear with a beak, because that's, I think, what we kind of tend to think about. It's got more mass than a grizzly, and it's extra aggressive. And its beak that we make fun of is designed to pierce armor. So if you just think about that for a second, we've seen videos of grizzlies, right? We've heard stories about them rampaging and taking people out in the real world. That's a real world animal without any special skills. So These creatures, the owlbears, are already larger than most things humans will ever deal with in real life. But because we meet them early into the game, we mentally shrink them. We treat them like little speed bumps instead of these biological weapons, when these things are deadlier than most animals a human will ever encounter. So now that we've talked about owlbears, let's go a little bit bigger. Let's talk about ogres. You see, an ogre is around 10 feet tall. That's taller than a basketball hoop. Its shoulders are well above your head. Its hands are the size of your chest, and in its hand is a chunk of a tree that it has ripped out of the ground, and it is wielding like a toy. If it falls, if it stumbles, you're gone. You are crushed by its mass alone. That's absolutely horrifying. To make that even more horrifying is that ogres are some of these smaller creatures that are classified as large, and they probably still wouldn't fit in your living room or your apartment without ducking. So let's move on to their cousins. Giants, hill giants, stone giants, fire giants. Now on the small end of giants, they are larger than a one-story house. Some of them are even larger than a two-story house. So for example, hill giants can stand 16 feet tall or more. That is two extremely tall humans stacked on top of each other, like two of the tallest people in the world on top of each other, and room to spare. They can peer into your second-story window. Their hands can wrap around your torso and lift you like holding a guinea pig. They wouldn't even care. And if you stood next to the smallest of giants, you'd be staring at its kneecaps and still craning your neck up to look at its face. Now, stone giants can get even bigger. They're nearing 20 feet tall or more. At that height, their shoulders are brushing the rooftop of your house. Like first-story homes, they're way taller than your house. You could literally see them from a distance. And if one bends down to look at you, it would be like you looking at a cliff face. Now, fire giants are worse. They are heavier, they're denser, they have armor that's thicker than most doors. Now, it's at this point in the list that our brain kind of starts to give up. Because we as humans, or you as humans and me as an interdimensional being, are not built, well, I am, you're not built to intuitively understand things that get any bigger than that, because your point of reference sort of just disappears. Humans have evolved to deal with other humans, with animals, maybe the occasional bear. We are not wired to comfortably imagine something that is that tall, that is that heavy in real life. And that's why giants will feel unreal on the map. A token does not capture the fact that their heads are multiple stories up. And remember, these aren't even the biggest things in D&D. They're the point where like the scale stops being intimidating and is just kind of disorienting, but they're not the biggest thing. So now let's scale up. So let's look at wyverns. Wyverns are often treated like lesser dragons. Like they're a stepping stone, like a little baby dragon, something that you fight before you can earn the right to fight a real one, because for whatever reason, we don't think about wyverns as being these like intimidating things. But a wyvern is enormous. Like that's a 15-foot long creature. It has a wingspan that is the size of a small aircraft. Its head is bigger than you, and it has a stinger that's longer than your arm. So even just sitting there with its wings folded, it would be enough to block your entire path. That is absolutely horrifying. Then we can scale up to a dragon. So even a young dragon, which is bigger than a wyvern, is absolutely massive. And it's hard to really internalize that. It's the length of a semi-truck, right? Imagine a lizard in the middle of the road that is the size of a semi-truck, and its wings can stretch from one side of the street, touch a building, all the way to the other side of the street, touch a building. It's got claws on top of that. So if one of the smallest dragons is standing near you, its head is above you, its chest is above you. That's a little one. So now let's go into the adult dragons, push that a little bit further. At the size of an adult dragon, you're starting to lose reference points. Their wingspan can exceed 100 feet in actual D&D lore. When a dragon spreads its wings, it is longer than a commercial airplane. Imagine standing, looking out at your next flight. A dragon could be bigger than that when its wings are spread. That's insane. I really don't know how else to internalize that, to put that into visuals, right? It is bigger than an airplane. When they fly, you can probably hear the air vibrate like a helicopter with every thrust of their wings. And again, not the biggest dragon. If you go into ancient dragons, these are just landmarks. Those are just big living landmarks. You see parts of them at a time at that point. You can see a wing crest over a ridge. You can see the head rising above the treetops. You would see its shadow, and you wouldn't even know it's there until that thing moves. These creatures are dozens of feet long, 20, 30, 40 feet long, with wingspans that are 200 feet wide or more. That's 2 jets, not even jets, two airplanes butted up against each other. Their wingspan is bigger than that. So now let's leave the sky and go underground where things have a lot more room to grow. We're talking about purple worms. Now, purple worms aren't exactly tall in the same sense that like a worm isn't tall in the real world, right? They're just long. But a purple worm is hundreds of feet long. It's long enough that you could be fighting one end of it and have no idea where the other end of it is. When a purple worm is going to emerge from the ground, you're talking about hills splitting, entire tunnels collapsing. What used to be solid rock isn't anymore because they have liquefied it or eaten it or absolutely pushed it away from in front of them. That's sci-fi level, worst nightmare kind of monster. Hundreds, I mean, there are entire movies about these creatures. Very few environments can house a creature of that size, and yet we are led to believe that this thing is only 4 times the size of an adventurer because that's what the token is. And that's just not accurate. The token makes it look like it's just a couple sizes up. It's just 5 more feet, 10 more feet, but that's not the case. And that's what I'm trying to get at with this video, is that the token size does not match up to the size of the creature. Once we go from purple worm to the next thing, let's talk about the ocean. We get to things like the Kraken. Now, we've seen it in movies. We've probably thought about it if you've ever been out in the open ocean. I am absolutely terrified of getting onto a boat because, I mean, come on, look at this. You have probably thought about what sorts of creatures can exist in the widest expanse that we know about. The ocean. It makes up the vast majority of the Earth, the vast majority of it. Look at it. And a Kraken is borderline incomprehensible at this point because there is no creature alive that we can use to approximate its size. Absolutely no creature alive that we can reference. Like whales don't even come close. I mean, not really, because a Kraken's tentacles are thicker than the largest tree trunks in the world. They're long enough to wrap around an entire ship, not boats, ships. With their holes, with their masts, their crews, everything. You're on top of it. It's below you. At that scale, your brain is not even talking about a creature anymore. It is almost a landmass. It's part of the ocean. It's this ancient, vast creature that you have briefly intersected with in your life, and you will not live to remember it afterwards. And what's crazy to me is that the Kraken isn't the ceiling, because once we go Kraken level, we get to the Leviathan. Now, the Leviathan is something so large that entire ships can pass over it, through it, I guess, I don't know how to put it, without knowing it. Like an entire fleet can sail near one. They have no idea that they're close to one until somebody does something that pisses off the ocean, and then the Leviathan rises out of the water. I mean, this thing is hundreds of feet long. Some of them, at least accounts that I've read in the D&D lore, have them at over 1,000 feet in size. That's a quarter of a mile. I mean, you'd have to sprint to get over it in a few minutes. It's larger than a castle. It's larger than a city block. It's long enough that you could watch it move beneath the surface of the water for minutes before the last bit of it disappears underneath you. Its back alone would look like an island if there was dirt and stuff growing on it. It would create currents in the water. I mean, like, you would have entire trade routes that would avoid it. Myths that would grow around it, coastlines that are shaped by this thing because of, you know, it crashing onto the shore or whatever. It is its own setting. You could have an entire setting in its stomach or on its carcass if like some weird pirates built on it or something. D&D monsters, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that all D&D monsters feel smaller than they should, even on a miniature scale, even if you're not playing online and just using tokens, but even when you're just setting minis on a board. We try to imagine them in human spaces. We try to think about them in rooms. We try to imagine what it looks like on the map, inside of a corridor, but many of these creatures, they're not meant to be imagined that way. They're meant to be imagined next to a ship, next to a building, next to a landscape. Become entire settings for adventures. So the next time that you jump into an encounter, I highly encourage you as a DM to think about the monster's scale, right? So, and if you're a player, don't ask how many squares it takes up. Ask how much of your vision it fills. As a DM, right? Give that information. How much of the vision does it fill for the players? How long does it take for your brain to accept what you're seeing? Could you even tell where it ends? Those are all the sorts of things that are going to really capture the immensity of the monsters that you're that you're fighting, that your players are encountering, even if it's a 3-foot goblin. Think about what terms you can use for your players to really make that sink in, because again, if you think about 6 little tiny children with knives and sharp teeth coming at you super fast, that becomes way more terrifying than here are 6 goblins. Anyways, let me know in the comments down below, what's the biggest creature that you have ever encountered? I'm very curious. Who's taken on a kraken? I really want to know. Now it's time for some quick shoutouts. Darren Blaney with a Tobias sighting at 4 minutes and 9 seconds. Great job, Darren. Also, why do you mildly sound like you should be a magician? Nonamanius says, why is the cat made out of concrete? Listen, it's because he's dense as f***, am I right? I'm so sorry. And Sigil Wizard Classic says, happy Tobias, thinking of literally nobody else but Percy. Lorekeeper mentions only Vax me. How absolute dare you? I have no excuse. I love Percy. He's probably, other than Vax, might be my favorite character. I love Percy. Don't get me... I'm so sorry. Now, if you're paying attention in today's video, leave a timestamp in the comments down below with where you saw Tobias in this video, and you might get shouted out in the next one. Leave a question. I like answering questions. And if you want to help support the channel, I'm going to be making it my life's mission to put content up on Patreon that doesn't make it to the YouTube channel. And on top of that, for those of you that have been asking about my world, Maladea, I will be dropping a document sometime soon for Patreon subscribers to jump in and play in Maladea. So keep your eyes open and stay tuned for updates there, but really soon, really soon. I've been working on it for like 2 years, you guys. You have no idea. So head on over to the Patreon if you want to check that out, or support the channel, only if you have the means. Otherwise, the best thing you can do is just like and leave a comment down below. So, as always, thank you so much for watching. Forge on, my friends, and remember, we didn't even talk about space.